He had everything money could buy. A tech empire, a mansion that overlooked the Pacific, security systems that cost more than most people's homes. But he couldn't buy the one thing his children needed most: peace. Until a woman walked through his door who changed everything. Not with credentials, not with degrees, not with expensive techniques, with something far more powerful. You know that feeling when you're waiting for disaster? When your whole body tenses because you know something bad is about to happen. You just don't know when or how. That's how Marcus Chen lived every single day. Standing in the marble entryway of his 12,000 square foot home in Malibu, Marcus held his breath and listened. Silence stretched through the hallways like fog. Too much silence. For most fathers, quiet would be a gift. A moment to breathe after a long day of running a billion-dollar AI company. But for Marcus Chen, silence was a warning siren. Because silence meant his triplets were plotting something. Silence meant they'd found a new way to break things. Silence meant another nanny was probably locked in the bathroom, crying into her phone, begging the agency to let her quit. Marcus stood perfectly still, briefcase in one hand, car keys in the other. His pulse hammered in his throat. Then he heard it. Not screaming, not crashing, not the sound of glass shattering or furniture toppling or someone shouting for help. Laughter. Real laughter. The kind that bubbles up from somewhere genuine. The kind Marcus thought had died in this house 18 months ago. He moved through his home like a man approaching something impossible. Past the living room with its floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. Past the formal dining room that seated 20 but never had guests. Past the hallway lined with abstract art Sarah had chosen years ago when she still believed this house would be filled with joy. Marcus reached the sunroom and stopped. His triplets, Lily, Mason, and Sophia, age 5, sat in a circle on the floor. Together, not fighting, not destroying things, not tormenting each other or whoever was trying to care for them. They were building something. A tower of blocks, carefully stacked, wobbling but standing. And they were working together. Marcus felt his chest tighten, his vision blurred at the edges, because 3 weeks ago, this same room had been a battlefield. 3 weeks ago, these same children had sent their 14th nanny running from the house in tears. 3 weeks ago, Marcus had sat right there on that couch and wondered if his children were broken beyond repair. Or if he was. Marcus Chen was 38 years old. He'd built an artificial intelligence empire from nothing, a kid who'd immigrated from Taiwan at age 7, who'd taught himself to code in a public library, who'd turned one breakthrough algorithm into a company now worth $3 billion. He could predict market trends before they happened. He could solve problems that made other CEOs quit. He could build systems so complex they seemed like magic. But he couldn't build a peaceful home, and God knows he'd tried. 18 months ago, Marcus's life had imploded in a way no amount of money could prevent. He'd been at a conference in Berlin, 3 days, a keynote speech that would position his company for a major acquisition. He'd been on stage presenting when his phone started buzzing in his pocket. Once, twice, 10 times. Something was wrong. He'd finished his presentation on autopilot, walked off stage, and checked his messages. Sarah was gone. Not dead, not in an accident, just gone. His wife of 7 years had packed 2 suitcases, driven away from their Malibu mansion, and left their 5-year-old triplets with the nanny. No warning, no discussion, no chance to fix whatever had broken. The note was waiting on his pillow when he flew home 16 hours later. I can't do this anymore. I'm drowning, and you're too busy building your empire to notice. The kids deserve better than a mother who resents them. You'll figure it out, you always do. Don't try to find me. No forwarding address, no custody battle, no phone calls or explanations or attempts to come back. She just erased herself from their lives like deleting a file. Marcus had read that note 50 times, maybe 100, searching for clues he'd missed, warning signs he'd ignored. But the truth was simpler and more devastating. He'd been so focused on building something that mattered, he'd destroyed the things that mattered most. Sarah had been alone in their marriage for years, alone raising 3 high-energy, demanding children while he chased success, alone in a mansion that felt more like a museum than a home, and when the breaking point came, she'd chosen herself. Marcus couldn't even be angry. Because he understood, but that understanding didn't help the triplets. Lily, Mason, and Sophia had been 4 years old when their mother disappeared, old enough to know something was wrong, too young to understand why, old enough to remember her voice, her smell, the way she'd tuck them in at night. too young to make sense of why she'd never do it again. The abandonment broke something inside each of them. Lily, the oldest by 4 minutes, became hypervigilant. She stopped sleeping through the night, started testing every person who came near them, pushing, biting, screaming, as if she could make people leave on her terms before they left on theirs. Mason, the middle child, turned inward. He stopped talking much, started hoarding things, toys, food, anything he could hide under his bed or in closets. Like if he gathered enough stuff, he could fill the emptiness their mother left behind. Sophia, the baby, developed what the child psychologist called reactive attachment disorder. She'd attach intensely to caregivers within days, then have complete meltdowns when they left, which they always did, because the triplets made sure of it. Hurt kids hurt people. That's what every therapist told Marcus. They're not being bad, they're being traumatized. Intellectually, Marcus understood. Emotionally, it was destroying him. The nannies came and went like weather patterns. Jennifer lasted 11 days. The triplets locked her out of the house during a rainstorm. She stood on the porch in soaking clothes, screaming through the door, while they watched from the window and laughed. Patricia made it 3 weeks. She quit after finding her car keys superglued inside a jar of peanut butter. Elena, who had 20 years of experience and references from celebrity families, lasted exactly 6 days. Lily bit her hard enough to draw blood. Mason poured juice into her laptop. Sophia screamed non-stop for 5 hours straight. There was Margaret, who called Child Protective Services, convinced the children were being abused. They weren't. But the investigation was humiliating. There was Yuki, who tried to implement a strict behavioral chart system. The triplets destroyed every chart she made and shredded her childcare manuals. There was Denise, who tried to be their friend. They walked all over her until she cried every day at pickup time. There was the one who yelled. Marcus fired her immediately. There was the one who gave up and just let them run wild. Marcus fired her too. 14 nannies in 18 months. 14 professionals with training, experience, and glowing references who couldn't handle 3 wounded children. The agency was running out of candidates. Marcus was running out of hope, and his house showed the damage. Crayon murals on imported wallpaper. Scratches on hardwood floors that cost $18,000 to install. A chandelier they'd somehow pulled halfway out of the ceiling. Broken furniture, stained carpets. A playroom that looked like a tornado had fought a hurricane. Marcus could afford to fix all of it. Could hire contractors tomorrow and restore everything to magazine-perfect condition. But what was the point? The triplets would just destroy it again, because they weren't trying to break things. They were expressing the brokenness already inside them. Marcus would sit in his home office late at night, after the children finally exhausted themselves into sleep, after cleaning up whatever chaos that day had brought, and stare at photos from before. Sarah laughing, the triplets as babies, chubby and happy, family pictures at the beach, at birthday parties, at Christmas morning with wrapping paper scattered everywhere, and genuine smiles on everyone's faces. That life felt like it belonged to someone else. Some other Marcus who hadn't lost everything that mattered while gaining everything he thought he wanted. The call from the agency came on a Friday afternoon. Marcus was in a board meeting when his phone vibrated. He almost ignored it. He'd learned to compartmentalize, to be present at work, even when home was falling apart. But something made him glance at the screen. The nanny agency. Again, he stepped out of the conference room, bracing for bad news. Another rejection, probably. Another lecture about how his children were uniquely challenging, and maybe he should consider alternative care options, which was code for, your kids are impossible, send them somewhere else. Mr. Chen. The agency director's voice was careful, too careful. We have one more candidate, but I need to be completely honest with you about something. Marcus closed his eyes. Here it comes. What kind of honest? She's different. She doesn't have the typical qualifications we usually require. Different. Like that word meant anything anymore. His triplets had defeated every type of caregiver imaginable. The strict ones, the nurturing ones, the experienced ones, the educated ones. What was one more failure? What kind of different? Marcus asked, too tired to care. She has no formal childcare training, no degree in early childhood development. She's older, mid-50s. She's been a homemaker most of her life, raised her own children, who are grown now. And she's very... The director paused. She's very religious. Faith-based approach. She mentioned wanting to pray with the children if that's something you'd be open to. Every alarm bell in Marcus's head went off. No credentials, no experience with difficult children, wants to bring religion into his secular home. This was exactly the kind of candidate he would have rejected instantly 2 years ago. Hell, 2 months ago. But 18 months of failure had taught Marcus something important. Expertise didn't matter if it didn't work. Every trained professional had quit. Every credentialed expert had given up. Every person with an impressive resume had looked at his triplets and seen problems too big to solve. Maybe different was exactly what they needed. "What's her name?" Marcus heard himself ask. "Rose Mendoza." Marcus took a breath, held it. "Send her." Rose Mendoza arrived on a Monday morning at exactly 7:30. Marcus watched from the window as she got out of an old but well-maintained Honda Accord. She was short, maybe 5'2", with silver-streaked dark hair pulled into a neat bun. She wore a simple floral dress and cardigan that looked handmade, and she moved with unhurried calm. She carried 2 things, a worn leather Bible and a canvas bag with children's books visible at the top. Marcus opened the door before she knocked. He had his speech ready, the same one he'd given 14 times before. "The triplets are extremely difficult. They've been through severe trauma. They will test every boundary you set. If you need to quit, please just tell me directly instead of disappearing mid-shift." But before he could say anything, Rose Mendoza smiled at him, a real smile, warm and completely unafraid. "Mr. Chen," she said in accented English, her voice gentle, "before I come inside, would you mind if I took a moment?" Marcus blinked. A moment for what? To pray. And right there on his doorstep, in full view of his security cameras and the neighbors' houses, Rose Mendoza closed her eyes, clasped her hands, and prayed out loud. Not quietly, not self-consciously, just prayed. "Lord, I don't know what I'm walking into, but you do. Give me your eyes to see these children the way you see them. Give me your heart to love them the way you love them. Give me your patience to stay when it's hard. Give me your wisdom to know what they need. Help me be your hands in this home. Amen." She opened her eyes, smiled at Marcus again, and said simply, "Okay, I'm ready now." Marcus just stared at her. Every nanny before had asked about pay, schedule, responsibilities, emergency protocols, their authority to discipline, backup support. Rose Mendoza had prayed on his doorstep. He didn't know whether to laugh or tell her this was a terrible mistake and she should leave while she still could. Instead, he stepped aside and let her in. "The children are in the playroom," Marcus said quietly. "I should warn you." "It's okay, Mr. Chen," Rose interrupted gently. "You don't need to warn me. Children are children, no matter what they've been through, and every child deserves to be met with love first, not fear." She said it so simply, so certainly, like it was the most obvious truth in the world. Marcus led her down the hallway toward the playroom. His hands were sweating, his pulse hammered. This woman had no idea what she was about to face. He opened the door. The playroom looked like a disaster zone. Toys scattered everywhere, books torn and pages crumpled, crayon marks on the walls, a knocked-over lamp in the center of the chaos. And in the middle of it all, 3 children who looked up with immediate suspicion. Lily, arms crossed, jaw set, ready to defend her territory. Mason, already backing toward his hiding spot under the craft table, clutching a toy car. Sophia, eyes narrowed, fists clenched, waiting to see if this new stranger would hurt her like all the others eventually did. Marcus waited for Rose to flinch, to hesitate, to see what he saw every day. Chaos, damage, children too broken to love. She didn't. Rose Mendoza walked slowly into the room, not rushing, not overwhelming them, just moving with calm intention. And then she did something extraordinary. She knelt down on the messy floor, getting her dress dirty, lowering herself to their level, and she looked at each child individually, really looked, not assessing, not judging, not cataloging their problems, just seeing them. And then she said the words that would change everything. "You are not too much." The room went still. Lily's arms stayed crossed, but her shoulders tensed differently. Mason stopped retreating. Sophia's fists slowly unclenched. "You are not unlovable," Rose continued softly. "You are not broken. You are not mistakes." She paused, making eye contact with each of them. "My name is Miss Rose. I'm here because I believe every child is a precious gift from God. Every single one. Even the ones who are angry. Even the ones who've been hurt. Even the ones who think, Nobody wants to stay. Another pause. Longer this time. I want to stay, Rose said firmly. And I'm going to. Not because it's my job, because you're worth it. Marcus stood frozen in the doorway, unable to move, because he suddenly understood something profound. Every nanny before had come to manage his triplets. Rose Mendoza had come to love them, and for the first time in 18 months, Marcus Chen felt something he'd almost forgotten existed. Hope. If you're enjoying this story so far, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from you. There's a moment in every impossible situation when you stop bracing for disaster and start believing in something better. For Marcus Chen, that moment didn't come all at once. It came in small miracles that accumulated like snowflakes, insignificant alone, but together creating something that could bury the old world and reveal new ground beneath. Rose Mendoza's first day didn't end in chaos. That alone was miraculous. Marcus stood in his home office that evening, staring at 12 monitors showing every angle of his house. The security system he'd installed after the third nanny quit. The cameras, he told himself, were about protecting his children, but were really about protecting himself from more betrayal. He pulled up the afternoon footage and watched. Rose hadn't tried to force order, hadn't barked commands, or implemented behavior charts or threatened consequences. She'd simply started humming. An old hymn Marcus didn't recognize, something that sounded like it had been passed down through generations. And while she hummed, she began picking up toys. Slowly, deliberately, not frantically trying to fix the chaos, just calmly restoring order like she had all the time in the world. The triplets had watched her with deep suspicion at first. Then Lily spoke, voice sharp with challenge. "You're going to quit." They all quit. Rose had kept humming for a moment, then looked directly at Lily. "Have I quit yet?" "Not yet. But you will. Why do you think that, sweetheart?" "Because we're bad." Rose had stopped moving then, set down the toys she was holding, knelt down until she was eye level with Lily. "You're not bad, honey. You're hurt. There's a big difference." "What's the difference?" Lily asked, trying to sound tough but coming out small. "Bad is who you are. Hurt is what happened to you. Bad can't be fixed. Hurt can be healed." On the screen, Marcus watched his daughter's face crack slightly. Just a hairline fracture in the armor she'd built. "Can you heal us?" Lily whispered. "No, baby. But I can love you while you heal yourselves. Sometimes that's all healing needs, someone who stays." Marcus had rewound that moment 3 times. Each time, his throat tightened more. Day 2, Rose brought breakfast. Not the quick, functional meals the previous nannies had thrown together. Real breakfast, scrambled eggs with cheese, fresh fruit cut into shapes, toast with the crusts cut off because she'd somehow already noticed that Mason wouldn't eat crusts. She sang while she cooked, old songs in Spanish that filled the kitchen with warmth. The triplets came to the table cautiously, waiting for the catch. Sophia reached for a strawberry with her fingers, no plate, no manners, testing the boundaries. Rose simply handed her a napkin. "Strawberries are definitely finger food, but they're juicy, so you might want this." No correction, no shame, just meeting her where she was. Mason spilled his orange juice. The glass tipped, liquid spreading across the table, and he immediately started crying, bracing for anger, for punishment, for proof that he'd ruined everything again. Rose was beside him in seconds, gentle hand on his shoulder. "Oh, honey, it's just juice. Juice spills sometimes. We all spill things. Want to help me clean it up?" She handed him paper towels and they cleaned the mess together, side by side. No lecture, no irritation, just a shared task that said, "Mistakes are fixable. You're not in trouble for being human." Lily watched the whole interaction with narrow eyes. "Our mom used to make breakfast," she said suddenly, voice loaded with challenge and pain. "Before she left us." Every nanny before had fumbled this moment, either dismissing the pain or drowning in awkward sympathy. Rose sat down beside Lily and looked her straight in the eyes. "I bet you miss her very much." "I don't miss her," Lily said, jaw clenched. "She didn't want us. We weren't good enough." "No, baby." Rose's voice was firm but gentle. "That's not true. Sometimes grown-ups are carrying so much hurt inside themselves that they can't see clearly anymore. Your mama leaving wasn't about you not being good enough. It was about her not being strong enough right then to stay." She paused. "Let that settle. But here's what I know for absolutely certain. You are worth staying for. All 3 of you. You are valuable and precious and wonderful. Your mama not being able to see that doesn't change the truth of who you are. Lily's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. But something in her rigid posture softened, just a little, just enough. Over the following days, Rose brought something the triplets had never experienced, consistency wrapped in gentleness. She arrived every morning at 7:30. Not 7:25, not 7:40, 7:30. The triplets could count on her. She had routines, but they were flexible. Breakfast, then outdoor time, then quiet activities, then lunch, then rest time, then creative play, then dinner preparation together. But if someone was having a hard day, the routine bent. When Mason needed to hide, Rose let him hide. But she'd sit outside his hiding spot reading aloud so he knew he wasn't alone. When Sophia had a meltdown, and she had many, Rose didn't try to stop her. She'd sit nearby, steady and calm, waiting for the storm to pass. And when it did, she'd open her arms and say, "I'm still here. I didn't leave. You're safe." When Lily tested her, which happened constantly, Rose didn't take it personally. When Lily screamed, "I hate you," Rose responded simply, "That's okay. I still love you, and I'm still staying." Marcus watched it all through his cameras. At first, he watched to catch her making mistakes, to find proof that she'd quit like all the others. Then he watched because he couldn't look away, because something was happening in his house, something he didn't dare believe was real. Week 2, the changes became undeniable. Sophia started sleeping through the night. Mason stopped hoarding food. Lily went 2 whole days without biting anyone. The child psychologist noticed during their weekly session. "Whatever's different at home," she said, looking at Marcus with surprise. "Keep doing it. I'm seeing progress I didn't expect for months." Marcus didn't tell her what was different, didn't know how to explain that a woman with no training was succeeding where trained professionals had failed. He just nodded and went back to watching his screens. Rose prayed with the triplets, not forcing it, not making it weird, just naturally. Before meals, she'd ask, "Can we thank God for this food?" And the triplets, curious about this ritual, would bow their heads and listen as Rose expressed gratitude. "Thank you for this food, for this day, for Lily and Mason and Sophia. Thank you that they're learning and growing and healing. Amen." At bedtime, she'd sit on the edge of each bed and ask, "Anything you want to talk to God about tonight?" And slowly, tentatively, they started sharing. "I'm worried about the bad dreams," Sophia would whisper. Rose would take her hand. "Dear Jesus, Sophia's having bad dreams that scare her. Help her sleep peacefully tonight. Remind her she's safe. Amen." "I'm sad about my mom," Mason would say quietly. "Lord, Mason's heart hurts tonight. Hold him close. Help him know he's loved. Amen." "I'm scared Miss Rose will leave," Lily would admit in the darkness. "Father, Lily's afraid of being left again. Help her trust that people can stay. Help her believe she's worth staying for. And help me keep that promise. Amen." Simple prayers, but they did something powerful. They taught the triplets that their feelings mattered, that someone was listening, that they could be honest about pain and it didn't make them bad. Week 3, Marcus found himself doing something he'd never done before. He came home early, not to check on Rose, not to inspect her work, not to catch her doing something wrong. He came home because he wanted to see his children. He walked through the front door at 4 in the afternoon, unheard of for a CEO, and followed the sound of laughter to the backyard. Rose sat on a blanket with all 3 triplets. They were painting, not carefully, not perfectly, just painting, getting messy, creating chaos that somehow felt joyful instead of destructive. Sophia had paint in her hair, Mason had it on his face, Lily had somehow gotten it on her elbows, and they were laughing, real, genuine, from the belly laughter. Marcus stood at the window, watching through the glass, afraid to interrupt this moment, afraid that if he stepped into it, it would shatter like every other good thing in his life. Rose looked up and saw him there. She smiled, gestured for him to come out. Marcus hesitated, then opened the door and stepped into his own backyard like he was entering foreign territory. "Daddy!" Sophia shrieked, running toward him with paint-covered hands. "Look what I made!" She held up a piece of paper covered in shapes and colors that made no sense but somehow conveyed pure joy. Marcus knelt down, let her throw her arms around his neck, paint and all. "It's beautiful, baby girl," he whispered, his voice breaking. "It's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." And he meant it. That night, after the triplets were asleep, Marcus found Rose in the kitchen preparing tomorrow's lunch. "Rose," he said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" "Of course, Mr. Chen. How are you doing this?" His voice cracked. 14 trained professionals couldn't last a month. You don't have their credentials, their education, anything they had, but you're reaching my children in ways I didn't think possible. How? Rose dried her hands on a dish towel and turned to face him. Her eyes were warm with understanding. "Mr. Chen, those other caregivers weren't bad people. They weren't wrong about their methods. But I think maybe they were trying to fix behavior, and behavior is just a symptom." "Symptom of what?" "Broken hearts," Rose said simply. "Your children don't need more discipline or structure or consequences. They need to know they're safe. They need to know they're loved. They need to know someone will stay even when they're difficult." She paused. "Because difficult isn't who they are. It's what they do when they're scared." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "I'm not doing anything special," Rose continued. "I'm just showing up every day and loving them the way God loves us, unconditionally, patiently, without keeping score of mistakes. I'm staying when it's hard. I'm seeing their worth when they can't see it themselves. And praying," Marcus said softly. "Yes, sir. And praying. Because honestly, Mr. Chen, I can't do this in my own strength. None of us can. We all need help. We all need grace." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "They're healing," he finally said. "My children are actually healing." "They are," Rose agreed. "And so are you." Marcus looked at her sharply. "Me? You're starting to hope again," Rose said gently. "You're coming home early. You're present. That's healing too." Which brings us back to that Tuesday evening. 3 weeks after, Rose Mendoza walked through his door and prayed on his doorstep. 3 weeks of small miracles accumulating into something bigger than Marcus had dared to imagine. Marcus came home from work tired but hopeful now. A different kind of tired. The tiredness of healing, not the exhaustion of defeat. He opened his front door. Silence. But this time he didn't panic, because he was learning that silence wasn't always dangerous. Sometimes silence was peace. He moved through his house, following the quiet, and reached the sunroom. His triplets, Lily, Mason, and Sophia sat in a circle on the floor. Together, not fighting, not destroying things. They were building something. A tower of blocks, carefully stacked, wobbling but standing. And they were working together. "Careful, Mason," Lily said. "Not bossy, gentle. Put it on this side." "Like this?" Mason asked, actually asking instead of just doing. "Perfect," Sophia said, clapping softly. "We did it." Rose sat nearby, watching them with a smile that held so much love it physically hurt Marcus to see. The tower stood, wobbly but complete. And then Lily did something that shattered Marcus completely. She looked up at Rose and said, "Miss Rose, will you stay forever?" Rose's eyes filled with tears. "As long as you need me, baby. As long as you need me. We'll always need you," Sophia said simply. Marcus's knees buckled. He grabbed the doorframe to stay upright. Rose saw him there, saw the tears streaming down his face, saw the man he'd become, broken open, vulnerable, finally able to feel again. She stood up slowly and walked to him. "Mr. Chen," she said softly, "your children are going to be okay. They're strong, they're healing, and they have something most children never get: a father who loves them enough to fight for them, even when he doesn't know how." "I gave up on them," Marcus whispered. "For 18 months, I gave up." "No, sir. You were surviving. There's a difference. You kept them safe while you learned how to live again. That's not giving up. That's enduring." She paused. "But now it's time to do more than survive. It's time to live. Really live. Be present. Not perfect, just present." Marcus looked at his children. At the tower they'd built. At the hope on their faces. "I don't know how," he admitted. "Yes, you do," Rose said. "You start by walking into that room, by sitting on the floor with them, by staying even when it's hard. That's how everyone learns to love." Marcus took a shaky breath. Then he stepped forward. He walked into the sunroom, lowered himself to the floor, and sat beside his children. 3 small faces looked at him with surprise. "Can I help?" Marcus asked, his voice breaking. "Can I help you build?" Lily studied him for a long moment, testing, deciding. Then she handed him a block. "Okay, Daddy," she said, "but you have to be careful. It's easy to break things." "I know, baby girl," Marcus whispered. "I know." And together, father and 3 children and a woman who'd refused to give up on any of them, they built something new. Not perfect, but together, and that was everything. If you're hooked on this story, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. Your support means everything and helps me bring you more emotional stories like this one. 6 months later, the house looked different now. Not because Marcus had hired contractors to fix the damage, though he had. Not because the walls were freshly painted or the furniture replaced, though they were. It looked different because it felt like a home. Marcus stood in the kitchen on a Saturday morning, making pancakes, badly. They were misshapen and slightly burned, but his children were sitting at the table, watching him with anticipation instead of fear. Rose was there too, because somewhere along the way she'd stopped being just the nanny. She'd become family, part of their healing, part of their story. "Daddy, that one looks like a turtle," Sophia giggled, pointing at a particularly lumpy pancake. "That's what I was going for," Marcus said, playing along. "No, it wasn't," Lily laughed. "You can't cook." "I'm learning," Marcus said, and he was. Learning to cook, learning to be present, learning to live instead of just survive. Rose caught his eye from across the kitchen, smiled that warm smile that said, "You're doing it. You're really doing it." Mason climbed into Marcus's lap while they ate breakfast. Just climbed up, unprompted, and settled against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. Marcus wrapped his arms around his son and breathed him in. "I love you," Marcus whispered into Mason's hair. "I love all of you, and I'm never going to stop telling you that." "We know, Daddy," Sophia said simply. "Miss Rose told us you do." "She was right," Marcus said. After breakfast, they went to the backyard. The fountain was running again. The garden was tended. The space felt alive. While the triplets played, Rose and Marcus sat on the patio, watching. "Thank you," Marcus said quietly, "for not giving up on us." "You don't have to thank me, Mr. Chen. This is what love does. It stays." "Marcus," he corrected. "Please, call me Marcus." Rose smiled. "Marcus." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Marcus spoke again. "I've been thinking about Sarah a lot lately, wondering if she knows, if she can see that we're okay now." Rose looked at him thoughtfully. "What do you think?" "I think maybe she's been watching all along. Maybe she sent you to us." "Maybe she did," Rose said softly. "Or maybe God knew what you all needed and decided it was time for healing." Marcus watched his children run through the grass, laughing, whole, alive. "I stopped believing in miracles when Sarah left," he admitted. "Stopped believing in anything except what I could control. And now," Marcus smiled, "now I believe that some things are bigger than control. Some things require faith." "Like what?" "Like hope," Marcus said. "Like love. Like the possibility that broken things can be made whole again." A butterfly landed on the patio railing. Bright blue wings, impossibly beautiful. Sophia saw it and gasped. "Daddy, look! Mommy sent us a butterfly." Marcus's breath caught. Sarah had loved butterflies. Said they represented transformation, new life. "Yes, baby," he said, his voice thick. "I think she did." The butterfly stayed for a moment, wings opening and closing slowly, before flying away into the bright California sky. And Marcus understood. This was Sarah's blessing, her way of saying, "You found your way back. You chose healing. You chose love. I'm proud of you." Rose stood up quietly. "I should get started on lunch." "Rose," Marcus said, "would you consider staying permanently, not as a nanny, as part of our family?" Rose's eyes filled with tears. "Marcus, I'm already part of your family, and I'm not going anywhere." She walked inside, humming one of her old hymns, leaving Marcus alone with his children. Lily ran over and grabbed his hand. "Daddy, come play with us." "Yeah, Daddy," Mason echoed. "We're making a fort." Sophia jumped up and down. "Please, please, please." Marcus stood up. Let his children pull him into their world of imagination and joy and healing. And for the first time in 18 months, maybe for the first time ever, Marcus Chen understood what true wealth meant. It wasn't in his bank account or his company or his mansion overlooking the ocean. It was right here, in 3 children who'd learned to hope again, in a woman who'd shown them all what unconditional love looked like, in a family that had been broken but was learning, day by day, how to be whole. "I'm coming," Marcus said, smiling. "I'm coming." And he ran into the grass, joining his children, choosing presence over productivity, choosing love over fear, choosing this moment over everything else in the world. Because this was everything. This was the miracle. Thank you so much for watching until the end. If you loved this story, check out the other videos on your screen now. I think you'll really enjoy them. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next story.